G'day guys, I'm here with Cameron Shaw, who is a lawyer. How are you, Cameron?
Great, thanks Adam.
Tell me, how important is email to you?
Email is crucial to lawyers, it decides cases.
Cool. So I'm going to take you through a few questions, our top 10 rules to better email, and see how you go. With the first one, do you treat your inbox as just a kind of a to-do list?
Absolutely. We use a piece of third-party software actually called Leap Legal, and once we've dealt with an email, we can add that email to Leap and it deletes or removes the email out of the inbox and moves it into a subfolder called saved items.
Okay. And that's for things from clients, and we have something similar, Microsoft CRM, which has an Outlook add-in for the same type of thing.
Tick for you on that one then too, Adam.
Okay, great. Now, if you're not putting things, you're not always storing things into your legal software, do you have a general policy of when you receive an email, read it and delete it?
If we don't need to retain the email, then we will delete it, but lawyers are pretty cautious in deleting things because they need to keep evidence. Destroying evidence is not something lawyers should get used to. So we're not that good at deleting things for good.
Okay. So I typically, if I reply to an email, I've got a copy of it in my sent items and I can just delete it. One of the things I wish Microsoft and Google had done is add an extra folder called saved items. So if I receive an email, I can just move it into my saved items and it's out of my inbox. So do you generally use email for tasks rather than communication, rather than have a back and forth conversation? Get on the blower, talk about it, and then confirm the conversation.
Lawyers probably fail on this rule, sadly, Adam, as well, because what we're paid to do a lot of the time is write letters, and we don't generally get an agreement from, for instance, the other side's lawyers before we send the letter. We just send them a letter or send them an email saying, this is what we say, and we wait for a reply from them. So, no, we use email for communications.
So the next thing I wanted to ask you about was adding context to emails. Do you often find that if you have a conversation with someone, you put something like as per our conversation, or if you add extra people into the thread of an email, you put in, not only add them, but put in brackets, adding Raj, adding, Bob, etc. Do you do things like that?
Look, if I've had a conversation with a client, then yes, that's exactly what I would say. We try to avoid long email threads actually because we don't know what point we might be admitting if we don't address it in the history of the email. And also there are really strict rules about who we can communicate directly with. I can't communicate directly with another solicitor's client. So we actually have to often remove people from a CC list rather than adding people in.
Do you find that very inefficient?
The law is not based on efficiency.
Okay, all right. When someone sends you an email and they ask you a number of points, or do you always make an effort to answer every single one? And I know a lot of people, when they send an email, they kind of put their points throughout the paragraphs that they're not very clear, and then other people don't always answer all the questions.
Yeah, it's really important in our business to answer all the questions which we're asked. If we fail to give advice on something we've been asked to give advice on, we'll get sued for negligence later on. So yeah, we have to answer all the points.
Okay, well, I don't get sued for not answering all the questions, but it certainly feels incompetent when you don't answer all the questions. Like sometimes somebody sends you an email with just 2 or 3 points and you answer the first one and you think you've replied.
Having said that, if correspondence comes in from another side, it has been known that you deliberately ignore certain points.
Why?
If it's in your client's interest to ignore them.
Right. Okay. It's not being very upfront, Cameron. One of the things that people often want is a change to a Word document or a change to a web page. And they often say, hey, change the second paragraph to say this. I always think it's miles better to say, change it from this and paste the original to new line this and type it out again. Do you do that?
We use Word for The documents we're changing are often contracts or agreements or proposals or heads of agreement or the like between different clients. If we request changes to documents, all we say is delete clause 4.5 and substitute some other words. So we don't follow that rule particularly well.
Don't you think it's better? Like sometimes the document has changed in between when you read the email and when you had sent it. Don't you think it's a good policy to do that for safety?
Track changes is pretty useful for tracking how people are changing or editing documents, and we probably wouldn't get into a long email thread with change this to that. It's done a bit more shortly.
Okay. So when someone sends you an email, I'll do the next two in one go. When someone sends you an email, do you always reply all, CCing everyone? Because a lot of people just go reply and they drop everyone unnecessarily. And are you super careful when you've been BCC'd?
I certainly don't CC all in reply because I don't know who I'm replying to. And if I'm giving advice, I'm giving advice to the person that asked for the advice, and they might have CC'd someone else who I don't know who they are. So I actually often remove the CC list. And I'll tell the client, look, I've removed the person. If you want to forward this email to them, that's fine. But we operate under pretty strict rules of client confidentiality, and so we can't just assume that anything we've got to say to the client, that our client is happy for that to go to a third party.
Maybe you should tell your clients, because I'm a lawyer, you'll have to keep everyone CC'd.
Yeah, we could get that standing instruction, but we'll get in trouble for it at some point.
Right. So do you have a good system of following up emails? Because it's very common to send someone a task to do, and then you're only as good as how well you follow up. It's not just about delegation. So do you have a good system for following up?
If we're corresponding with the other side in a matter, so the solicitors for the opposition or in a matter, we generally try and put the ball in the other side's court. So if they've sent some correspondence to us and they say X, Y and Z, we'll send a reply saying, no, it's A, B and C, and send the letter back to them, putting the ball in their court. So that's the way we manage who's got the next job.
Okay, all right. So I really do believe it's about following up, and so one of the things I often do is when I send an email, in the BCC I'll put 2 weeks at follow up then, and that service just sends it back to me. Or in Outlook you can go options and you can delay an email to send out. So I use those techniques.
I'll investigate those. They sound good.
Okay. And the last one is always reading an email in threaded. And when you do one email, do the whole lot in the thread and get rid of the whole thread in one go. Do you do that?
If there's a history of threads, is that what you're saying?
And do you read your email with threading on? So it's not...
I don't have that set up in my Outlook, actually.
What version of Outlook are you using?
I think 2010.
Okay, all right. Well, it's definitely in there. Then basically you view conversation by thread. It's how Gmail works by default, and that's the hottest tip I can give you for today.
I'll take it.
Okay, and with that, this is Adam Kogan signing off. Cheers. Did you get all that? We'll take the SSW TV quiz and test your knowledge now.